This is Chris Barker, Director of Athletics at Southern Connecticut State University on the One Question Leadership Podcast. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the NCAA Pathway Program, Dee Merritt and Lamar Pottinger, for creating opportunities for people like myself and people of color and underrepresented populations to having opportunities to be directors of athletics. If it wasn't for the Pathway Program, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be with people like Andrew Gavin, who got me into the Pathway Program, people like Sean Frazier, who was one of my mentors through the Pathway Program, who then introduced me to the Pictor Group, who got me into the chair at the Southern Connecticut State University. Thank you, NCAA Pathway Program, and thank you, Ty Brown. Go Owls.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Jeff Mitchell. Jeff is the Deputy Director of Athletics at the University of Southern Mississippi. Greetings, Jeff. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ty. Great to be with you.
Now, Jeff, you've been at Southern Miss since, I believe, 2018. You came in for one job and ended up being the interim athletic director for a few months. And then now you're in your role as deputy athletic director. Prior to, you spent time at Santa Clara University. And when I was looking at your bio, I guess a school that's a little smaller like Santa Clara, you got to do everything in the athletics department, because it said you were the chief operating officer, the chief revenue officer, you were external, internal compliance, and every position you ever heard of in athletics, right? Which I thought was interesting. Spent some time at Millsaps. You started off there in sports information. You played baseball. You coached a little baseball while working there. You've been in college athletics for over 20 years. You also went to law school while working in media relations at Mississippi at Ole Miss. And so you have a lot of experience, and it seems like you spent the first part of your career making sure you had all the qualifications necessary to set up for the part of your career where you're in now, where you're the deputy. So I am happy to have you on the podcast.
Man, it's great to be here, Ty. Look, my grandfather gave me some advice a long time ago, and he says, just be qualified for what you do. And I took that to heart. And, I've been so fortunate in my career to have had the diverse experiences that I've had. But being qualified really means something. And so the education was very important to me. And, I was offered the opportunity to go to business school and to start my career at Millsaps, a place that I adore, and it's my alma mater, and I had the opportunity to play baseball and coach there too. But it was that really foundation that sparked my interest to go to law school after that, and just to fall in love with intercollegiate athletics and higher education, and knowing that an MBA and a law degree could set me apart in my career. And as a matter of fact, Ty, I read an article in the Sports Business Journal when I was in MBA school that had a quote in it from Andy Geiger, who at the time was the athletic director at Ohio State. And he said that the future leaders in our profession would be those with a business background and or a law background. And in that moment, I decided that I would do both.
Oh, wow.
And I've never looked back.
That is interesting. Both of those educational experiences, the MBA and the law school. Of course, law school, there's a certification process and the bar association, those types of things. But definitely the MBA, a lot of times it is the material, but the general concept is, let's teach you how to think about things, right? Not what to think, but how to think. And so I wonder, does your brain work in that way? There's this business model theory tied to this logical, legal type aspect in your mind over the last 20 years, based on that being the foundation of your qualifications, as you said?
Yeah, it's a great question. Sometimes I'll sit across from my staff members and I'll tell them, like, look, I'm putting my law cap on right now, and we're having a conversation that is rooted in legal theory or just legal issues. And then other times, because I really focused on organizational development in management in business school, is I'll tell them, look, I'm putting this hat on too. And sometimes you get to wear both at the same time. That's always a fun conversation. But I think those two educational experiences shape the way I think, shape the way I lead, and it helps me have a holistic understanding, at least in my opinion, of our profession and the challenges that we're facing, the opportunities that we have going forward. And it's an interesting time, obviously, in our profession
100%.
right now. And I think that critical thinking ability is very valuable now as we chart a path forward.
Is there a process you use? Well, I guess it kind of depends on what is put before you in terms of solving problems and preparing solutions. But is there a process you use in terms of how you approach, especially coming from the deputy chair, where you're probably like a COO in terms of hands and everything? Is there an approach to solving problems you use with those types of that type of education in your background?
Yeah, I think most of the times at this level, I'm getting information from multiple sides, so to speak. So uh, pushing the envelope a little bit, it's almost like I'm a judge in some respects, and I try not to form too quick of an opinion on matters, and really want to hear what's being brought to me. So I utilize, um, I guess, a tactic that's really evidence based, question based. Like I need information to help me form an ultimate decision that I'm going to make, or help me develop a framework that I'll utilize to present to others based on facts that I've gathered. So I try to do it in a very methodical, strategic way. Um, and sometimes, Ty, it's utilized for me to make a compelling argument for something that I think we need to accomplish, and other times it's just basic facts saying here's what's going on, and maybe it's not for me to make a decision, maybe it's for our athletic director to make the decision, but I want him to have the opportunity to make the decision. Jeremy McLean is our athletic director at Southern Miss, and it's part of my job is to give him clear, concise information of a particular problem that ultimately he may have to make a decision on. And the more I do my job well, the easier it is for him to make that ultimate call.
Right. Is there I give advice to friends of mine who sometimes don't like the way something is presented to them. And I'm like, look, before you decide to get upset, ask a clarifying question first to make sure you understand how this thing is being presented. Is there a question, or do you have some leaders have a habit to do something first before they even start processing information? Like you said, ask a question. Is there one question that you resort to first, usually when you are processing information, or does it depend on what's coming across the table?
Yeah, I do, and it's basically tell me what you want to tell me, and and I try to put people at ease, whether I go to their office or they come to mine or we just meet somewhere in the middle. It's tell me what you wanted to tell me, and make it comfortable for them. Sometimes we can't get to the root of an issue unless we're very open and honest and transparent with each other, and I think sometimes people in our positions um, don't get the, all of the information that perhaps is out there. And I want to do my best to create an atmosphere that's conducive to fact finding and understanding the totality of the circumstances, because that's how we can root out issues. And I will say that we have such a great culture here at Southern Miss, and we had a great culture at Santa Clara as well. And so we really didn't get bogged down into distractions in the office place, and we were able to quickly facilitate any type of issues, root them out, and focus on making progress. And that's kind of what we're here to do, is to just charge forward every day. And sometimes we get bogged down in things that waste our time and our distractions, and we try to eliminate that to the extent that we can. So the more open and honest and transparent we can be, and that starts with leaders in our organizations, just to say, tell me what you want to tell me, so that we can get to a conclusion.
So people just present the bullet points right off the bat.
Right.
Well, there's this, Jeff, this, and this, right? Kind of situation.
That's right. That's right.
Super interesting. Now, when you were at Santa Clara, I think you were there 12 years, right? And,
Correct.
And I believe what you told me offline was that in the first 8 years, you were in an internal role working in compliance, and you said, but you had an external problem, right? As if you had this addiction to external relations in college athletics. It was a problem for you. But talk to us a little bit about that experience. Started off running compliance office, but you found yourself dabbling in everything external, and that actually became your specialty later on during your tenure there.
Yeah, so I was so grateful again for my experience at Millsaps first to cut my teeth in this profession and to be engaged in media relations. And I loved it so much. So when I went to law school, that was my ticket into working in the athletic department at Ole Miss, and worked on the external side while I was in law school. And so when I transitioned, that my wife and I got married, we moved to the West Coast. I was knocking on doors in the Bay Area, and the only school that looked at me was Santa Clara. And so I volunteered for 5 months uh, in the only position that I could volunteer, that they were giving me the opportunity to volunteer in, which was in the compliance office. And
And this was just after law school, right?
just after law school.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And so, I'd been given some advice while I was in law school that I should look at working in compliance. And again, I was so fixated on that external front that I really dismissed the compliance notion. God's plan is bigger than mine anyway. And so,
Right.
uh, I had this opportunity to work in compliance, and that was the biggest blessing I think in my career, because I was able to develop a broad and holistic view of higher ed and intercollegiate athletics that I just didn't know existed until sitting in that office. And I was invited at a place like Santa Clara that was smaller and where you did have to wear multiple hats to sit at the table at almost everything that we did. So I was beginning to learn how to run an office, how everything interplayed with each other, and the compliance was central to that because people were always looking to me to provide information. Can you do this? Can you do that? And it just began to educate me about how it all works together. But nevertheless, because of the composition of our staff at Santa Clara, the nature of the area in which Santa Clara exists, in a very urban, in a large metropolitan area in the Bay Area, it was all hands on deck when it came to being in the community, engaging with fans, fundraising, you name it. So I got to be a part of that too. So that's why I say I had an internal role with an external problem, because I was just involved in every aspect. But again, that was so rich for me to be able to um, collect all those experiences, and it helped me to be the well-rounded professional that I am, and helps me to be really good today in my role. And I did eventually transition the last third of my time at Santa Clara, running the day-to-day external operations as the number 2 administrator, and we had gone through a leadership transition there. Renee Baumgardner is the athletic director at Santa Clara now, and it was really in that role that I learned how to be a really good number 2, to be anticipatory in my leadership, and to be not just prepared, but precisely prepared for meetings, because you just, at that point in an advisor role, you just have to always be dialed in to what you're doing and to what advice you're given, and really to spot potholes, so that your athletic director or president even, it does not fall into a pit that's can be avoided.
Yeah, which is interesting, seeing around corners, right, for the boss.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you come to Southern Miss in 2018, I believe, in an external role, right? This is the primary focus of where you're coming into now. I think you kind of had your hands in everything then too, but then not long after you come in, you're the interim, right? And as an interim, I mean, decisions are put in front of you to make, right? Tell us about that process.
Yeah.
Do you feel like in 2018, when you took on that role, were you ready for that type of responsibility? I mean, I guess looking back, you would say yes, but I mean, who knows? Like,
Well, I felt more prepared perhaps than I would have been, and that was because I had the opportunity to serve as the interim AD at Santa Clara too, Ty.
Okay.
So when we had that leadership transition, the president at Santa Clara had confidence in me to serve for several months, just to kind of pave things and get things ready for our next leader, and that was ultimately Renee's hire. At Southern Miss, when I transitioned um, to working here in Hattiesburg, I had no idea that there was going to be a quick transition period. So about 3 months into my time here, John Gilbert, who's now the athletic director at East Carolina, had hired me to come to Southern Miss, and he had an opportunity presented to him that he couldn't pass up to go to East Carolina, and I was offered the opportunity to be the interim AD at Southern Miss, and yes, so I felt more prepared to do that then because I had the experience before, but I was really new to Hattiesburg and to Southern Miss, and it allowed me to quickly get acclimated to the scene and to meet our fans and to understand what the culture was here in a very intimate way. And yeah, I mean, things are coming at you left and right. And when people say that your life changes overnight when you have the opportunity to sit in that chair, it's very true. And again, I'm very grateful for the experiences that I had here. We had a tremendous year in that 18-19 academic year, the most successful that Southern Miss Athletics has had competitively in the last 15 years. So we had several teams make the postseason and win a conference championship. And it was a lot of fun. We did a lot of great things. Really began to stabilize the culture here. There had been a lot of movement in leadership, and so I'm proud of that. And then Jeremy McClain was named athletic director later that year, and Jeremy and I have known each other for a long time, and so we've been able to continue that momentum and build on things the last few years here.
Yeah, which is important. Now I have a question. You come in, and 3 months later, you're the interim AD. I mean, have you even identified the best? So you're in Mississippi, soul food restaurants. I mean, what do you like? Where the fans are? Like, it's like this education has to come to you almost immediately because you're expected to be present at places where people are, right? Where's the conversation taking place? Let me join that conversation. Tell me about that aspect of getting acclimated.
Well, I got thrown right into it. I mean, it was, one day I'm sitting in the office and I'm just trying to figure out the best advice to give to John. And then next thing I know, John's not here, and I'm being ushered to the governor's mansion to give a speech to talk about Southern Miss athletics. You talk about a quick education. That was that. But again, I felt really prepared in the moment to do it based on the background and the career experiences that I've had. So I wasn't nervous. I didn't question the moment. I took it, embraced it, enjoyed it, and I know that it has helped prepare me for future opportunities as they come, and feel very comfortable in that regard. But yeah, learning the great places to go, the soul food restaurants, whatever, that came pretty naturally to me.
Okay, right. So as soon as you move in, right? Where's the best place to eat here? One more question along that line of thinking. When McClain came in, now you're introducing him to people that you've met over the last 5 or 6 months as the interim, right? And you obviously want a leader to make their own judgment about things, but I'm sure you had some opinions that you developed in terms of what you thought would be good for him to go to or to attend, to meet, and all those types of things. Talk about that part of the transition.
Yeah, and that's a great question because it's really important as a leader to allow your teammates to make informed decisions because they're in the role now where they have the ultimate authority to make decisions. And I learned this when I was at Santa Clara is I don't need to cast my opinion or judgment about a particular person or a particular initiative unless someone asks me for that opinion. I don't need to unnecessarily project what my feelings are. And so what I told Jeremy was, to the extent that I can provide background information or context to a particular issue, I will be happy to do that. But I want you to have the freedom to make judgments of your own and to ask questions without any type of preconceived judgment from me. And however, where there were clear potholes, to use that analogy again, I would steer him away from those. And that was just, he had to trust that what I was telling him was safe. And again, we've known each other, so we had that rapport, and I think I did a good job of making sure that he didn't run off the road. But at the same time, I think I stayed true to the idea of letting him make informed decisions, with me being there to provide helpful, thoughtful advice, but without um, creating some unnecessary bias.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is interesting, especially as the deputy, right? The number two. You don't want to create bias, but you do have to give your thoughts based on the information received.
Right.
How do you may even have a strong opinion about something, but how do you, especially when you're in these leadership roles and in a leadership role for a few years now, the thought process of, is this my opinion or is this necessary information to give to the boss so he can make a decision? Tell me about that, how to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, I think that it's just a maturation process of being, I can recall even as a younger administrator where I had these thoughts or feelings about something and I felt like I had to say them because it was the best thing that was going to be said that day. And then I quickly realized that sometimes the best thing said is that which is unsaid, and or to ask questions to lead someone to have unique and thoughtful inspiration on their own, as opposed to me, um, you know, messing with the situation. And I just learned over time that if you were going to say something, that it had to be measured, it had to be thoughtful, it had to be precise, had to be chock full of pertinent information as opposed to just filler. And I think that made all the difference in terms of my growth and the opportunities that I have had to be top advisors to athletic directors and to presidents. And sometimes less is more. But when things are said, it's got to be very relevant and rooted in evidence. And I think that's going back to MBA and law school. I think those are lessons that I've learned that ring true every day, and especially now because I think I've gotten pretty good at it at this point.
Yeah, which is excellent. Now, one interesting part of your bio and your background is that you wrote a textbook, right? Sport Ethics and Leadership by Jeff Mitchell, which is used at a couple programs throughout the country. Tell me about the provenance of that idea to actually write a textbook. And I mean, do you just, so I've been co-author on a book also, but I mean, just how do you come about writing a textbook that people
Yeah.
can use for class type situations?
Yeah. Well, I had a neat community when I was at Santa Clara and stumbled upon this group of gentlemen that I guess there were five total, including me, and four of whom were attorneys, and one was an ethics expert. And we started to collaborate, and all of a sudden we birthed this idea of writing a textbook, and it began to gain some momentum. This was probably back in 2014, and we met fairly consistently. We came up with about 13, I think it was 13 chapters in the book, and began to utilize the various expertise of our respective careers as law intersected with sport. And then we brought in the gentleman who was the ethics expert, and we just wove a textbook together where it's a practical book on how to apply ethics and leadership scenarios in sport. And it does have a little bit of a legal slant to it, but the design was that the textbook could be used at the undergraduate or graduate levels. And it's been adopted some, and it was a fun project to work on. It felt like, for at least several months at a time, like a full-time job that I had to do, between the hours of 9 p.m. and 3 a.m., and writing my respective chapters. But we didn't want it to interfere during the workday, and at the same time, didn't really want it to interfere with family time at night. So you put the kids to bed, and then you go and start writing at night. But I really enjoyed it. It was a challenge, but it was very, I think, fulfilling at the end to see it in print. And the joy now is that I get to use it a little bit myself in teaching in our business school on sport management and leadership and weaving in an ethics component. And it's so important today in how we lead, and certainly the changing landscape of our profession is to make sure that ethics and leadership is at the heart of everything that we do.
Do you feel college athletics changes so quick, and even society, what was ethical may not be, or what it wasn't ethical may be leaning towards. It's just the whole thing is weird, and everything evolves to wherever it evolves to. Do you feel like the concepts are they still apply even with the evolution of where we are in terms of college athletics and leadership?
Yeah, I think so. The situations are always different,
Right.
and you learn that in law school. The facts of the case are different in every case that you have, um, but you're trying to get to the truth. And the um, you know, some days in our profession we don't know what that truth is, and we seek to get there, but we have to follow just the same I guess, construct of how we lead, and be grounded in, uh, what our core values are, personally and organizationally, and just continue to do it. And the facts are changing relentlessly, but we have to stay true to who we are and what we want to accomplish as an organization. And doesn't mean we don't have to pivot at times, but I think if we're centered around what is right and for whom we are acting, which is for the benefit of our student athletes and our coaches, and creating neat opportunities for our fans to enjoy intercollegiate athletics, and to advance the mission of higher education generally, then it's hard to go wrong. But that doesn't mean that it's not challenging at the same time.
Yeah, which is interesting. I asked this last question, then we'll wrap. Thinking about your career, as we talked in the beginning, you talk about establishing the qualifications early on. Then you work through your career and establish the credibility in terms of experience. But there are always things that we can do in leadership, or even just throughout our careers, that help us develop as professionals to get us ready for whatever might come down the pike. I know you recently finished one of the NCAA leadership development programs. I believe it was the Pathways program. I wonder if you can give us a little insight on that program, and how you feel it has helped to sharpen your skills as a professional.
Yeah, thank you. So, Ty, I had always viewed the NCAA Pathway program as this finishing school for athletic directors.
Right.
That was my thought of it as I was introduced to it, and I'd applied for it multiple times and kept getting rejected, and finally cracked the code, and was invited into the program for the 2021-2022 cohort. And what a blessing that was to be in that particular cohort with um, the amazing men and women across the country at the Division 1, 2, and 3 levels, that we sharpened each other in the various experiences that we've had in our respective careers. But the program itself is designed to make sure that the next wave of leaders in our profession are equipped with um, the idea of purpose behind what we do, equipped with the opportunities to sharpen our leadership skills, sharpen some of the softer skills that come with it, the ability to speak with to the media, the ability to handle tough situations with grace, and all those things are reinforced during the course of the year-long program. Uh, and we're doing it with other people. So it's not just ourselves. We've got teammates that we're leaning on, that we're learning from. And at the end of the day, you feel more confident about your ability as a leader. And you know that you're not just going through it by yourself, that you're actually have people in the profession to lean on, and to seek advice from, and know that others are going through the same challenges that you're facing, and that it's okay, that even in your in the most challenging of times, that there are others that either have experienced that, or um, have some type of insight to help you. And it was just a special year for me developmentally, and I'm grateful for Dee Merritt and that entire NCAA leadership development team for what they do. And especially grateful for the cohort of special human beings that I had a chance to go through that process with. So I appreciate that question. And, any time that you have an opportunity to put yourself in a challenging leadership development situation, you're just going to get better and sharper if you have an authentic approach to it and the ability to be vulnerable and knowing that at the end of the day, you're just going to be better and you can help your current organization and a future organization too, for that matter, based on some of those skills and relationships that you develop.
Yeah, which is excellent. Well, Jeff, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here at the One Question Leadership Podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ty.
Yes, sir. That was Jeff Mitchell. He is the Deputy Director of Athletics at Southern Miss. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.